My name is Tamika Tucker. I originally am from Iowa, but I reside in Chicago. I recently just got into bodybuilding roughly a year ago and just won my Figure Pro card at Nationals in December of last year. Outside of fitness, I also work in like the medical sales field. And then I do dabble back and forth with sports as well, still just with track and field, and then strength training, of course, and bodybuilding. So I'm excited to be here.
So, getting your pro card very quickly in your career, it's something that I think a lot of people strive to do and they, spend years and years trying to do it. But with you, I guess was it just a history of athletics and sports and that kind of thing that kind of led you to having maybe that foundation?
Yeah, for me, I think what led to me getting my pro card so quick was because I was a track and field athlete in college prior to getting into bodybuilding. I competed in track and field all the way from intermediate, basically from elementary competitively, all the way until college. I graduated from college in 2021. I kind of wanted to stay competitive. I was still athletic, still in great shape. And then I was like, okay, my sister Shannon, who also won her pro card with me at nationals, she was like, why don't you try bodybuilding? She had been doing it for a couple of years. She's like, I think you'll like it. You'll stay in shape. You have the genetics. We have the genetics for it. First year going into it, I started my first prep in February with my coach Dave with Underrated Muscle, and we went in as me being a wellness girl. The goal was to do wellness because of my development, my lower leg development, my quads, everything from track and field. And then the more we went and trained, my upper body just started developing. My shoulders got huge, and we're like, this is not what they're looking for in wellness. So we last minute at nationals actually we kind of went into do we were like, let's just do figure and wellness. So I ended up doing wellness and figure at nationals, and then that's how I got my pro card at nationals in figure. It was my first time competing in figure. It was all new for me, but it was exciting. It was a crazy time.
So getting into the weight room for the sake of like the aesthetic and physique side of it, was there ever an excitement for you to the weights and like to, or was it mostly just like kind of a side note to the performance side? Like, did you have like that excitement about it?
Yeah, like I think I thrive the most because of like I feel like a lot of women shy away from weights and like lifting heavy because we get the stigma of like when women lift heavy, they get bulky and they get huge. And like I grew up being a very muscular girl compared to my teammates. I was always the girl that was bigger. I always weighed like 20 or 30 more pounds than my other track and field athlete colleagues and things like that. So I always battled with like my body and body image when I was in college because I'm like, okay, I feel huge compared to these other girls, but my muscle development and was the reason I advanced and did so well. I became a long jumper, an All-American in college. Just I feel like a lot of it had to do with my muscle development. So I was always excited to get in the weight room. I love lifting heavy. I started off doing Olympic lifts in college with track and field, and then kind of worked my way to like learning how to lift like a bodybuilder, which is completely different from a track and field athlete. And it's different. And I'm still learning. Like again, I'm only 1 year in, but I'm still learning. And I love the weight room. I love lifting heavy. I love being a strong woman. I think it's cool seeing a woman's body really develop and get so strong. So I love it.
Yeah.
In college, when I did Olympic lifts, it was usually post like sprint workout or jump workout. So we were still working on power and agility. So those Olympic lifts were like snatches, cleans, like all fast motion, just snatching heavy weight up. And then it's like once I became a bodybuilder, I'm like, okay, now my lifts are like way more controlled. I have more breaks in between. I wasn't used to that. I'm so used to like fast movement. For me though, I think what's been a little different is I still kind of incorporate my track and field lifts into my bodybuilding lifts because at the end of the day, it's still lifts. It's still me lifting, building muscle mass, strength and agility. Because at the end of the day, as a bodybuilder, you're still an athlete. You're still training your body to do exactly what athletes are still doing outside of bodybuilding too. I still incorporate both the best of both worlds in there. I still do sprint workouts just to for my cardio sake, metabolism sake, heart rate sake, and then I still just kind of do the bodybuilding lifting and things like that. So it's a new world for me. I think very detailed when it comes to training and like eating. Like I feel like most bodybuilders are like, okay, I have to do this, this, and this. But I really look at the science behind everything because I think it's so cool, like knowing that if I do this, then my body's going to do this, or like this will increase. So I love the science behind it all. I'm kind of weird like that.
You mentioned the nutrition side as well. Is that something that you ever incorporated or thought about incorporating or anything like that into your athletic days as well? Or did that really kind of just pop up with bodybuilding?
So I think being a track athlete, you could get away with eating like kind of whatever because you're burning so many calories running every day. Like I was in college, you know, when you're a college student, you have like a nutrition plan as a college athlete, right? But there's days where you clearly just ate whatever. Like I could go to Subway, get a foot long, you know, because I was burning so many calories, it really didn't make a difference. But I really have to transition my nutrition from those track and field days to like the bodybuilding. Like bodybuilding is very strict, and it kind of took me a few months of my prep to really realize like if I don't eat strictly like this, I'm not going to get the results I want. So the nutrition side was a complete like shell shock for me because I've always been used to having a fast metabolism and like thank God good genetics to where I could eat kind of whatever and still be okay. But when I got into bodybuilding, I realized like you really can't miss certain meals because it affects like your energy levels, just your overall like energy throughout the day. So for me, my nutrition didn't really start in track and field. I kind of had a nutritionist and things like that in college, but the bodybuilding nutrition is completely different and more strict. So that's when it really made me dial in and realize like, okay, I can't afford to not follow my plan.
Hmm. And did you see, you mentioned a fast metabolism. Did you see that your metabolism ever kind of evolved or like changed when you did start to like your lifestyle change and even going from, track and field to bodybuilding?
I like have a very like when it comes to work, I work overnights at the hospital. So I work in hospice as well. So during prep, I was kind of crazy. I was working overnight shifts. And as you know, if I'm up for 12 hours at a time, I need to still continue eating. So there were days where I just was eating every 3 hours, you know, during prep. My metabolism was going crazy. I was literally sweating all the time because my body was just burning calories from me eating. I was constantly walking around the hospital, checking on clients. And then, of course, working out, doing more cardio. So I always had like I said, I had a fast metabolism running track and field. You know, I was running all the time, but my metabolism really kicked gear. Like I'd say a month into prep when I really got on my meal plan, stuck to my 6 meals a day. And then, of course, learning how to kind of snack healthy throughout the night when I worked overnight shifts. That's when it really kicked into gear. I noticed my body was just always sweating and I kind of hated it, but I knew my body was working. But that's when it really hit me. I started to see it in my face. My face started kind of getting that prep face, and then just seeing my abs, I just started getting cut up really fast. So I knew something was going. I'm like, okay, my metabolism is kicked in. So yeah.
So going, you mentioned working nights. Is that something that was new to you? Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
Yeah, so clearly with like track and field in college, you know, I couldn't really work
Mhm.
full-time job or anything. I was a scholarship athlete, so they really didn't want me working anyway. So I did work on campus, but it was like a couple hours in the weight room, gym, stuff like that. But when I graduated, that's when I really went to like the healthcare side of things. I opened my own business. So I have my own business too. I sell human hair wigs for clients with alopecia and cancer. So that kind of led me into the medical field, working with insurance companies. And then I went back to school to get my nursing degree. And then that's when I decided to kind of like go into the realm of working in healthcare. I really like the hospice piece of things, but usually working hospice, you do work overnight shifts. So this was like a big switch for me. And I felt like it really stressed my coach out a little bit because their job is to make sure that your body is fueled, to make sure like your whole prep goes smoothly. And with my job, I was working random overnights. Like I'd work 3 or 4 overnights a week. So my coach was really trying his best to make sure like, okay, we need to make sure her metabolism still keeps going. We need to make sure she's sleeping. He's like, when are you sleeping? What is your sleep schedule? So for me, that was a big transition for me because I'm someone I can't sleep during the day. It's either I sleep at night and go about my day. So it was really hard adjusting to that.
Mhm.
But I think me being so driven to win my pro card. Like I wanted to win my pro card so bad that like I just made it through everything that was thrown at me. Like I'm like, okay, we're just gonna make it work. Like I'm gonna find a way to make this work. So I was exhausted, I'm not gonna lie, but my coach did a really good job making sure that I was eating and finding ways to still get those 6 to 8 hours of sleep because as you know, sleep is so important during this time.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of really like getting at too, is like the sleep and recovery, because I know night shift is very hard on the body, and it can be hard, especially when it's not a normal thing. Like we're, even away from night shift, if you're not having a normal schedule, I mean, that's like step one of a bodybuilder, right? Is like get on
Yeah.
a schedule, get on a routine. And then this whole thing, this like big chunk of your day, 12 hours being on night shift and then switching, sleeping during the day. Well, and you mentioned that he did a good job of, or she, I don't know if remember if you said your coach, he or she, but putting you on like making sure that you did get your 6 to 8 hours still. Was that like programmed in as far as like making sure certain days, maybe when you could sleep longer, like maybe moving your workout, or make sure like programming in a nap at this certain time, or like things like that?
Yeah, so that's why I felt like I was kind of one of my coach's most difficult athletes because, like, his normal athletes, you sleep at night, you get your 8 hours, you wake up, do your cardio, whatever. But with me, he's like, okay, you need to designate midday this amount of time to try to get a nap or sleep or recover. And then it was like we would move my cardio, we'd break my cardio up. So I'd have cardio in the morning. I'd just go right after work, just go do my 30 or 40 minutes of cardio, go home, eat, nap, and then keep going. But I kind of had a good schedule after a while. I would work 3 overnights a week. We kind of knew what my schedule was. We knew what days I needed to sleep more. We knew what days I needed to eat more or have higher fats to get through a tougher workout. Like I said, my coach did a really good job of like working with me because I don't know, like I feel like any other coach would have been like, you either need to quit this job until you're done with prep. This is a lot to handle. But my body reacted really well to everything we did. Like I probably brought my best package to nationals, even with the crazy schedule I had.
Going from, obviously, like I think anyone would think a college athlete, you're going to be um, kind of that schedule's jam packed, and you have a lot going on with, athletics and with your schooling and things like that. And if you have a job on the side, like all the things going on. But then, bodybuilding also, I guess, too, in the same way, is like nonstop. Like thinking about every variable, and every day is as important as the one before and the next one. Do you feel like you maybe had like a mental advantage of like knowing the pressure of like being jam packed and having like a ton to do and get done, and from your previous life, if you want to call it that, from school and athletics, and you mentioned another smaller job, to then going to a full-time job in bodybuilding and things like that.
Yeah, being a college athlete, I feel like it's just already a lot to take in. Like when you transition from a high school athlete to like a whatever division you end up going, division 1 or 2, like your whole life changes. You have a structured schedule every day. The transition for me started really in college where it was like, okay, you're probably never not going to be busy at this point. Your life will probably always be structured and pretty busy. And to be honest, it was. And so for me, transitioning from post collegiate athlete to bodybuilder was not hard at all because I was already training like 4 hours a day with track and field. So it was no different from me basically working a full-time job and then doing the same thing. But for me, I think the mental piece is a really big thing. And I feel like it really needs to be talked about more because people don't understand the amount of stress you kind of put on your body sometimes, especially when it comes to like you're getting like closer and closer to being out from your show. You're like 8 to 6 weeks. Your mental starts to take over. You're like, okay, does my package look good enough? Like you're already overthinking, what you're looking like. But then it's the fact that knowing you have to keep pushing through. You have your other day-to-day responsibilities, life obstacles you can't control that happen and come through. So for me, I'm used to dealing with high pressure situations from being a college athlete, but bodybuilding also, I think, was a big mental shift for me because I'm always a positive person. I feel like I kind of have to be to have the crazy schedule I have. You got to be positive going into doing a lot of the stuff I do outside of this. But they don't really tell you how you start to feel once you like your body fat gets pretty low, like you're just kind of out of it. You get prep brain. You still got to like operate at work and like make sense. And I think the last couple of weeks of prep was when I really was kind of losing it a little bit. I was excited and happy, but it was just knowing like, okay, you just trained for like 6 to 8 months to get your body to look like this. And it's like you just want it all to be worth it. So like mentally you just overthink. I feel like every athlete probably overthinks a little bit. But I think the mental piece for me, I was excited. I think I was really motivated. And I think that comes back from the collegiate sports, like just enjoying the ride, enjoying the process. Because ultimately I feel like if you're a bodybuilder, you're doing it because you like it. Like no one does bodybuilding like as a chore. Like you do it because you like the experience, you like the process. It could be tough, but you enjoy the reward at the end. So for me, mentally, it was a ride, but I enjoyed it.
How many shows did you do before nationals?
Two.
Two shows. Okay. So with those two shows of experience going in, did you feel like at all you got like a grasp on the last few weeks of like prep and what that was going to feel like? Or do you feel like each show was kind of a little bit different and maybe the experience side didn't really start to kick in yet?
To be honest, I had did the Chicago Pro, Chicago Extravaganza as my first ever show. That was when I did wellness. And I got second at that show, but to be honest, my conditioning I felt like was not where it needed to be. I had a lot of factors that happened to me the week of peak week, just like my cycle. A lot of things happened. I was hoarding water. It was just a bad week. But I had junior nationals literally the week after that. So like I really had to brush all that off. Like it was a big mental shift for me. I was like, okay, we got 1 week before junior nationals. At this point, the goal is to at least get first call outs, to do something. I knew I wasn't physically in the shape I wanted to be, but I knew it's like I already paid for this show. I gotta go. It's happening. So it was 2 peak weeks in a row for me. After Chicago, I had another peak week for junior nationals. And then I got first call outs. I placed, I think, sixth. I think overall in my class, I was class C for wellness. And after that show, I think that's when it really hit me like, okay, when you're an athlete, you don't like losing. I feel like no one likes losing. So in my head, I'm like, all right, now I know what's expected. Like I personally could say my first prep, I didn't go and give 100% because I really didn't know what I was doing and I didn't know how serious I had to be. And then once junior nationals happened and like I kind of got on a big stage and I knew what was expected and got judges' feedback, I'm like, we could totally do this. I just need to kick it into gear. So that's when we started prep, like basically went back into another prep. This was like end of July. And that's nationals was in December. So I'm like, okay, we got a few months to grow and bring more glutes, whatever they were asking for. And then that's when I went hard training, that's when my body really went crazy and developed. And that's when we knew figure was where it was. Like my shoulders were huge. Like I didn't look wellness at all at that point. We just had to accept it really. And that peak week was way different. I was way more relaxed going into peak week for nationals because I knew I did the work. I knew I gave 100%. I did the critiquing that I had been requested from judges. But to be honest, I was kind of scared because it was my first time doing figure. I never did figure before. So I was nervous, but I knew my body was good enough. I'm like, okay, this is a good package. I'm excited about the package I'm bringing. So nervousness wise, it was very low because in my head it's like it's my first time doing figure. What is there to lose? You get what I'm saying? It's like it's my first time going up there. What is there to lose? And I think that's why I kind of did well was because I wasn't nervous going up. Like I was just like, what do I have to lose? Um, and then also just like having my sister competed with me, so having her with me, and we were like, for the overall, we were right next to each other. Like it was just having her. It was like a safe space. Like I just felt really comfortable. So my last peak week compared to my first peak week was a big shift, big transition. Being a newbie, you just don't know what you're doing. You don't know what to expect. Of course, your coaches can give you feedback and tell you, like, oh, do this backstage, do this. But until you really go back there and experience it, you can't really know what to expect. So I always say, like, don't take your first show overly serious, especially with the outcome, because 9 times out of 10, your package probably wasn't what it should be at anyway, because you don't know what you're doing. But as you go, always try to improve and bring a better package every time you go on stage and make the critiques that the judges want, and you should be good.
What was really going through your head, I guess, in the meantime between, seeing those results that you weren't necessarily actually going for versus, all right, now we're going to use those results and see if we can benefit from them.
So to be honest, before I even like got into bodybuilding, people kept telling me like your body's figure, you need to do figure. And like clearly my sister does figure, so I knew what figure looked like and I knew what it was, but I'm like I'm going to have to really cut my lower body down to do figure because I was very lower body quad hamstring dominant. And so to me I'm like I'm just going to have to slim my legs down a lot to do figure, the muscle development's there. Like, it's not hard for me to develop muscle. We learned that a long time ago, but it was like my shoulders are there kind of, but I would really need to slim it down to bring a figure package. So I'm like, if that ever happens, then okay, we'll just do figure. I was never opposed to doing different categories. It was just kind of like going in, my coach was like, hey, the way your body is developed, I think wellness would be the best route to go. But of course, I just have broad shoulders. Like, I have big shoulders. So he was just like, we would probably have to lessen the training on the shoulders and arms a little bit because they don't want that for wellness. But he's like, but bottom wise, like, you're fine. You're developed. We just got to develop a little more. So the feedback I got from the judges after junior nationals was to bring more glutes, but they were telling me already, like, hey, your shoulders, though, if you are training shoulders, this will be the time to not train them anymore because they are definitely peeking through. And come, like, they're like, you have good symmetry with your body, but we don't want a lot of shoulder in wellness. So I told my coach, I'm like, hey, let's just slow down on the arms, shoulders, and we'll just really develop the lower half so we can bring that for wellness. And then I promise you, as I started training, my shoulders just got big. I don't know what happened. My body just slowly turned into figure. And so I told my coach, I'm like, we might just end up doing figure. And he's like, well, at this point, you really might need to do figure because your body looks figure now. So that was like 4 weeks out, and I was excited. I honestly, like, I'm the type, how there's certain athletes that want to do a certain category, so they try their hardest to really fit into this mold.
Mhm.
I'm not like I said, bodybuilding should be fun. You should never feel like you have to like lessen your training or like the things you enjoy doing to make it work. Like, I feel like you should do the category your body is telling you to do. Like, I felt like the whole prep, my body was saying figure. It was just yelling figure. And I'm like, and my coach wanted me to do wellness so bad. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I liked wellness too. Like, I enjoyed it. But towards the end, I'm like, my body wants figure, so that's what I'm gonna do. And I enjoyed the training more. I enjoyed training shoulders. Like, when I couldn't train shoulders, I was very like, sad. I'm like, I'm only really doing legs right now. Like, this is not fun. Like, I love doing full body. I love like seeing my arms, and like I love seeing my body develop. So for me, I was excited. It was cool to watch my body do that because I had never been in that good of shape in my life. Like, even as a track athlete, I've always had abs. I was always cut up. But getting to this level of like physique, I just was mind blown that I even did that. So it was exciting, but it was like crazy.
And do you see in the future, I mean, like you said, it kind of would, I guess, depend more on, how your body responds, but ever going up and up another, to women's physique?
So I've gotten asked that a lot. Like, because of the how easy it is for me to develop muscle and with like the ability to continue to grow. Because even for figure, I had to still slim down my legs. And even then, they like the feedback I got at nationals was just to come in a little bit more leaner. So like I'm not opposed, but I think for me, like, I like being muscular, but there will be a certain stop for me to where I'm like, okay, that's kind of enough. So for me, at first, I thought figure would be like enough for me. I'm like, oh, it's kind of doing a lot in my opinion. But honestly, I like how I look during figure. I like my body. Like, I like seeing my body transform. If it comes down to it where they're like, you need to do women's physique because I'm just getting big and it's out of control, then I would just do women's physique. Like, whatever, I would probably stop there though. I wouldn't keep going. Like, I would I'd want to stay like probably in that realm. Hopefully stay at figure, but I wouldn't be opposed to women's physique if it ever gets down to it.
As you're doing a few shows, did the thought realistically ever come into your mind to where it's like, okay, I'm probably going to turn pro, or I mean, even if you think like, okay, I have the potential to turn pro, did you ever think it's going to happen this year? Or like, what were your, I guess, expectations going into nationals, or even going into like post your first show? Like, did you have expectations of like, oh, okay, we did good, and so I'm kind of expecting this? Or was it still just along the lines of like, I'm getting into it and we're trying to figure things out?
The athlete in me was wanting to win my pro card. The athlete in me is like, you're new, but that doesn't mean anything. You can literally win your pro card tomorrow. But the newbie in me was like, you're new to this. You really don't know what's going on. So don't have high hopes or these crazy expectations you're going to win a pro card at like a national level show, especially like a national level show. So um, me and my sister have been manifesting winning our pro cards at like by the end of the year since the beginning of prep. I feel like she had a lot of success. Like she won. We did the Chicago extravaganza together, but she did figure and I was wellness at the time. So she won the overall for figure. I got second in wellness. And then we went to junior nationals. She got first call outs. I got first call outs. So it was like she was having success all the way through. I was kind of having some trials and tribulations as I was learning. And then I had like a fire lit under me after junior nationals. I'm like, I don't care what category it's about to be, but I'm winning my pro card because I know what I need to do now. Like I know what's expected of me as an athlete, and I know I did not give 100% at these last shows. So if I give 100%, and I'm like, I got first call outs, and my body was probably at 70%. So for me, it's like if I got first call outs at like 70% in wellness, then if I give it 100%, I could probably win my pro card. So I like literally like manifested winning my pro card. Like I journaled like we're gonna win our pro card at nationals. Like I every time I did a workout, I just was always thinking like, don't stop because your competition is probably not stopping after this rep, or your competition probably did this much cardio, or you get what I'm saying. Like I was constantly thinking like you need to train better than your competition, and you need to mentally be better than your competition. So in my head, when I was like maybe 4 weeks out and I seen what my body was looking like, I'm like, you know what? We might actually have a shot. Like I was like, I might actually win my pro card. Seriously, like this kid, and you know, of course, people tell you like I was getting messaged a lot on Instagram. Like my social media kind of blew up my last show because I did have a really nice physique. I thought, in my opinion, and in other people's opinion, they're like, you're gonna win your pro card at nationals. Like there's no way your physique. And in my head, I'm still like learning like what this all means, like genetics. Like everyone's like your genetics, and I'm still learning that. I'm like, so genetics really plays a big role. Like I was really learning everything. And at that point, I'm like, okay, if people are telling me, like well-known people are telling me like I have a chance at winning my pro card, then we actually have a shot. So I was excited. My nerves kind of went out the window. It's kind of like it's all or not. I'm either going to win it or I'm not. So I was just excited, but I really just enjoyed the process. I met a lot of great girls backstage. I made a lot of friends, met a lot of coaches, talked to the judges. Like it was just a great experience. So when I won my pro card, I was in shock for a while, even after the show, like a month after, because I was doing interviews with others as well. And they were like, how does it feel to be a pro? And I'm like, it really still hadn't hit me that I won my pro card because you manifest it all year. And you when you manifest something, you don't always get it right away. But like the fact that I manifested it and like did the work and it actually happened, I think I was still in shock for a while. So I didn't go in thinking I would win my pro card right away. It was more so like I went in confident, like I knew I brought a great package. So this is probably my best shot at winning my pro card. So I felt confident for sure.
And talking about you and your sister competing at same shows and things like that, like is there that competitive spirit? Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
Yeah, so it's funny. We have the same coach. So Dave with Underrated Muscle, we have the same coach. And so a lot of the things we had was very similar. Genetically, we're kind of like we're not built the same because I'm more bottom dominant. She's very like we just have very different body structures. So once we realized I was doing figure, like we were talking our whole prep, we were like talking, telling each other like, oh, this is how it's been for me this week. But I feel like once I chose to do figure and we realized we were going against each other, we were still communicating, but it wasn't the same. Like it wasn't like, oh, what did you do today? It was kind of like, this is how I'm looking, this is this. Like we would randomly send each other check-ins, but like it wasn't like it was before. And I think our family really didn't know how to process it because they were used to us competing but not against each other. So nationals, like my mom was so nervous. She was like, I just can't even watch. Like my mom was just, she's like, because she's like, I know you both can't win the overall, or my parents, they were still learning the process. And like, luckily we were in different classes because I was scared we'd be in the same class because we're kind of the same height almost. But it was competitive until we got together, like before nationals when we were in our hotel and stuff. It's kind of like, hey sis, I mean, we're at the point where we're showing our packages now, and it's like, I wish you the best. Hopefully we both win our pro card, but at that point it was just friendly competition and just more so supporting each other. But it was definitely competitive. Like you could tell we had our moments where we really didn't tell each other much because we were like, I don't know what she's doing, but I want her to do well. But at the same time, it's like I'm kind of in my own zone, so I don't want to give too much. So it was friendly competition. We never had any like weird competition. It's always like us checking in. We would always check in on each other because me and her both have a corporate job. We both have businesses. We're both back in school. She's getting her PhD right now. And so we were both super busy, and it was more so us like wanting each other to be okay. And like I bring up that mental piece, mentally just getting through this whole thing because the average bodybuilder, most of them are personal trainers or they do something fitness related. So they kind of have time to just be at the gym and do this, and this. With me and my sister, it was like we would have to go to the gym at 5 in the morning or at midnight to get our workouts in because we had full-time jobs. Like I was working overnights and then also working 9 to 5. So it was like we were just more so concerned about making it. Like it wasn't even really the competition. At towards the end, it was just like we were here. This is what we brought. So there's really nothing else to compare. It's like we either are going to win or we're not.
Take us through that day that competing at nationals. Take us through kind of that experience and what it was like for you and what you learned from it. And you mentioned all the different people you got to meet and relationships and things like that.
The day of competition, I was I honestly was not nervous. The night before, I was very nervous. And I think it's because every little thought was going through my head. Like, you're doing two categories tomorrow that I was doing wellness and figure. And I'm like, so it's either gonna, go really well or in one category or the other. Because clearly in my head, I was preparing myself to either do well in one and not well in the other, because there's no way figure and wellness I would do well in both. So I'm like prepared to either do well in one or the other, and that's going to determine what we're doing moving forward. Um, the morning of the show, I was kind of numb. I was just kind of like, we had to wake up at like 4. I had to wake up at like 3:30 because for women, like men have it so easy. We have to go get our makeup done, our hair done. And you kind of get this time slot. You don't even get to choose the time really. So it's like 3:30 in the morning. I have to go to the hotel, the host hotel, to get my makeup done upstairs. Luckily, I do my own hair because I have my own business. So I really just had to go for my makeup. But once I got my makeup done and like put my suit on, that's when and like got my final like tan done. That's when it really hit me. Like we're going on stage today. Like this is really happening. Like wow. So I went on stage first because I was wellness. So I was already backstage. And that's when I got nervous, was when I sat back there by myself, and kind of really looked around and seen all these women back there, like we're all preparing. But also there were no weights. Like the show, there were no weights. They had no weights backstage. No one knew that. So a lot of people were not prepared. Luckily, my coach brought bands and stuff. But a lot of us were freaking out backstage. There were no weights, nothing was provided. So people were like, how are we supposed to pump up? What's going to happen? So that was my first freak out moment backstage, was that. Then, but we got that figured out, so I was fine. And then once they lined us up, I was fine. Once we got lined up, backstage in our classes to go on stage, I was like smiley. I was super excited. I was meeting girls back there talking because you could tell everyone was nervous. Like everyone back there was, some people were shaking, some people just literally looked like they were going to puke. And so I'm used to being like in front of people. I cheered in the NFL back when I lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So I'm used to being in large crowds and being in front of a lot of people. So like to me, it's like this is showtime. This is when like now it's time to smile. You're literally showcasing your final product. So I was excited lining up. Once I got on stage, it was like my personality came out. I was happy. I was confident. That was the difference between nationals and junior nationals. I wasn't really confident in my physique because I knew I wasn't 100%. This show was different because I knew I brought a great package and I knew that my overall look was what they wanted. I just felt great. So my class for wellness was huge. I was wellness class C. There was like I think like more than 20 of us. There was like 20 plus girls. And so I was nervous. I didn't think I'd get first call outs because I looked figure. Even when I went out for wellness, I'm like, I look figure, my shoulder. Like I tried not to pump up too much because I was already kind of striated. So I'm like, crap, let's hope I even get first call outs. So I got first call outs for wellness and I was happy. But then after I got off stage for wellness, that's when it hit me like, okay, now you're about to go compete in figure. Like now figure's about to happen. Like that the thing you don't know what you're doing. This is all new to you. This is like it's happening. So that's when my nerves got bad. But my sister was backstage, also my other teammate Jen. There was three of us. So I wasn't as nervous. They kind of talked me through what to do. And it just went really well. So I was excited. I had a good time. When I like went out there for figure and they started moving us around and I realized I was like in the center. I was splitting center with another girl. I'm like, oh my God, okay. So I'm like, I really am a figure girl. I'm definitely figure. But I was freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, like this is really happening. Like, oh my, sorry, my cat. Oh,
Mm.
I was like, oh my God, this is really happening. Like, I can't believe this. So they called us first call outs for figure. There was only four of us. Usually, they call like five girls. They only called four of us. And then we went back. So I was freaking out a little bit because I'm like, well, I don't know if I really won yet because we were splitting center. So I don't know if I got first or second. So we had about 3-ish hours before final. So my coach had us go back to the hotel. And that's when me and my sister were a nervous wreck. Like we were nervous wrecks at that point. Our coach was like, you just need to lay down and rest. Like we couldn't sleep. We like laid on our beds with like the lights off and our feet were elevated. But my sister would be like, are you up? And I'm like, yeah. She'll be like, I can't believe this. Like she's like, I think we might have won our pro cards. Like we were like sitting there freaking out. And then that's when we went back for final. And like when they called me for winning my pro card, like I honestly was in shock. Like I couldn't believe it. So I ended up getting fifth for wellness. So I still got first call outs. I got fifth in wellness. And to be honest, I think I was supposed to get sixth, but there were some malfunctions with one of the girls. Her bottoms broke, so she couldn't go up. So they just kind of had me go up there for fifth. But I overall got sixth for wellness. And then for figure, I won my class. I won class F. And then like as soon as we got off stage, I had to go right back up for the overall. And that's when I was really in shock because it was like me and my sister right next to each other because she won her class. I think she was E. She was class E or D. And we were right next to each other for the overall, like doing the turns and everything. And like quarter turning and seeing her in front of me and like knowing we were competing for the overall, like it was just what we manifested. It was just I was in shock. It was a wild time. And whether or not like we won our classes and we didn't win the overall, it was like we said we were going to win our pro cards and we did. So it was just an overall great feeling. And then after the fact, like having well-known coaches and like athletes coming up to me that are pros and saying like your physique was amazing and you really have a good chance at being like an Olympian one day if you really keep this up. And like hearing that type of thing made me realize like, okay, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Like when I started the bodybuilding, I'm like, I don't even know what category I am yet. I don't really know what they're looking for. But yeah, that's it all happened and I was super excited. I'm just glad it worked out and now I'm a pro. So it's a wild ride, but I'm excited.
So going from wellness to figure and in the same show, was that challenging at all to like get the demeanor differences? Like it seems like there's a little bit different of like an attitude about each one, right? Like a presentation, if you will. And then obviously the posing too. Was it weird going from that to then, switching it up and like I don't want to say like becoming a different person, but like almost showcasing it in a different way?
Yes, so that's why I think what the nerves I did have were literally because of posing and stuff. Because wellness is way more feminine posing, like hair flipping, like you're basically just like it's a lot of glute presentation, it's a lot going on. And then with figure, I felt more relaxed because it's like you just have these solid poses, you're just quarter turning solid poses. And yeah, you still have a routine, but it was making sure that I moved my hair for figure. Like it's the little details that you don't think about that like if you mess this up, it messes everything up. So my hair was very similar to how it is now for nationals. And I just kept telling myself like for wellness, it doesn't matter what your hair looks like, flip it around, do whatever. But I'm like for figure, that back pose, your hair needs to be in front. Like you need to showcase your shoulders, make sure your hair's not over your shoulders like this. Like it was just a lot of detail. And a lot of people were like, I commend you for doing two categories, especially at a national level show, because like most of the time people are just nervous doing one category, let alone two. And I like to challenge myself. Like I think I'm someone who's like a kind of like a daredevil. Like I love challenging myself to just do crazy stuff. But I would never do two categories again. Like if I ever had to like do another show, and now that I'm a pro, I feel like it's just gonna be one category anyway. But if I ever had to do that again, I probably would not because I had to change my suit backstage. Like a girl had to hold a robe up because like there was no changing areas. So I went from wellness to literally running to like change to a figure suit. Like I had like no time. Everything was so back to back. And it was very nerve-wracking in that sense. But overall, it was a great experience, and I don't regret it though. It was just a lot to remember and a lot of detail.
So obviously, you win your pro card and it's kind of the, fulfillment of what you've been manifesting and hoping and wishing and working for as well, obviously, of course. But did you ever think about like what not what would it feel like or but what would happen? What's like, okay, if we don't win, here's not necessarily how we're moving forward because I think it becomes obvious like you just get better, but like was there any thought of like if we lose, we're gonna keep our head up, we're gonna do this, we're gonna, just any of that going on, like just the if this doesn't happen the way we want it to play out.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm always someone who tries to mentally prepare myself for the worst, even though they always say never do that. I'm someone like when you're an athlete, when you've been an athlete all your life and you're used to either winning or having success throughout your whole athletic career, and you go from winning all the time to like losing, like you have to understand, I started my bodybuilding career losing. Like I hadn't won a show. So like I mentally was already like kind of defeated from those other shows. So it was kind of like, well, here's the thing. You hadn't won a show before this anyway. So if you lose, you're at a national level show. Like it's everyone's good looking here, okay? So it's not like you're at a local show. So I was kind of preparing myself like, hey, if you lose at this level of a show, it's like, come on, everyone probably looks great. You did what you could. You brought your best. As long as you bring your best package, that's all that matters. So even though I wanted to win and I thought I had a good enough package to win, I still in the back of my head was like, okay, but if you lose, don't be a sore loser. Take it to the chin and then go back to the drawing board and we'll compete again. But I definitely would have taken probably a really long, not like a really long off season, but definitely would have taken an off season because I competed the whole year last year, basically from February until the end of the year. I was in prep. And so for me, it was like I felt like I put a lot on my body during that time, just stress of trying to win a show, this, and this. So win or lose, I knew these next few months after the show, I was going to take time off. And if I would have lost the show, it would have been me doing more of like a bulk right now, like a, building and working on whatever they told me I needed to work on. But instead, since I won my pro card, now I was kind of in like a lean bulk for these last couple of months. And then prep technically officially started for me February 1st. So now I'm just kind of in prep right now before I do my pro debut. So I kind of prepared myself for the worst, but ultimately you never want the worst to happen.
Mhm.
And I would have, like I said, I would have just taken it to the chin and just improved and tried to do whatever. I'm not someone who dwells in something negative for too long because you really can't what is thinking negative about something going to do that's going to be a positive for you. Like constantly thinking negative about something is not going to change the outcome.
Right.
So just be positive, move forward, keep pushing. That's always been my thing.
So the last few months of improvement season, off season, whatever you want to call it, This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. What has that been like?
I would say the biggest thing I feel like for most athletes that either determine where their mentality is post show is how they rebound. I think I had a really great rebound. Even now, I still feel like I'm still in like coming in, starting my prep. I feel like I'm looking pretty good for a solid base. Um, but I definitely took those last couple months to kind of eat more off plan because I'm still on a meal plan, but it's not like strict show meal plan. I still get some cheat meals here and there, was able to celebrate the holidays, my birthday, things like that. So I've been definitely taking advantage. Like I've been living because I feel like when you're in prep, you can't really like you can travel and still live a normal life, but you're so restricted that you don't want to. Like I'm not gonna want to go to Miami if I can't eat calamari on the beach or drink a margarita. So like I didn't travel a lot because I knew I'd be tempted to eat bad. So lately I've been just traveling, visiting friends, doing a lot of things that I normally wouldn't do in prep. But my mentality, I feel like especially women, we struggle so much seeing our bodies go from super lean, cut up to now I'm back kind of fluffy, like, not I don't have my abs like I had them before. And that I feel like that also leans back to the mental piece, like the mental, like a lot of women struggle with their eating, with their mentality, like everything when it comes to post show because you want to stay lean, but you also want to enjoy eating foods you were eating before, but then you don't like seeing your body not look good. So then like you don't know what to do. You're like life becomes a little stressful at first because you're like, I want to eat pizza and a burger, but at the same time I want my abs and I can't have both. So the mentality, seeing a lot of women, not just myself, struggle with that, but the mentality behind all of like off season and bulking, I would say, is very tough for women because men, it's like I feel like men really don't mind being big and getting huge. Women, it's like if a guy tells us we're huge or if someone says like, "Oh, you're getting huge," like no girl wants to hear that. I mean, and like if you're saying I look cut up huge, like sure, but yeah, I think mentally it's been a ride because I like my body in all phases. I like my off-season body. I like my in-season body. Like I like all stages because that just shows the normalcy of it all. I feel like if someone's stage lean all year round, they probably have some form of a disorder or imagery issues because there's no way you're going to be stage lean all year round. And to try to maintain that is very stressful on the body. So seeing someone like that all year round, unless it's genetics, I would be a little concerned. But for me, it's like I know what I look like off season. I'm definitely in my off season body right now. And I've been enjoying it. Like I said, I enjoy eating my foods when I can, the things that I usually can't have. And like I said, bodybuilding's been really cool. It's been a lifestyle change for me. I don't think bodybuilding's like people say it's like a hobby, it is, but it's really a lifestyle change because there's no way you're a bodybuilder. And like when you're in off season, you're not still eating somewhat clean. Like there's no way you're not. Like you're still on plan of some sort. So it's really a lifestyle change. And for me, I think I've definitely gravitated towards the lifestyle change very successfully. And I enjoy what I do. I enjoy going to the gym every day. It's my peace. It brings me stress relief. I've enjoyed this off season, but I'm excited to get back on stage. I'm excited for my pro debut. There's a few shows I have in mind that I want to do, just depending on how my body develops these next few months. But I'm excited. I'm just a little nervous though, because it's like I'm a guppy in a huge lake at this point, all over again. But I'm excited to showcase me and show who I am.
Yeah, it's crazy to think like, okay, you hit this, this level that so many people strive for, and you're kind of for a moment, for like a millisecond, you're kind of at the top. You said you started your prep on February 1st. Is there anything that you do? Obviously, your plan may switch around and change up a little bit to start a prep, but like, is there anything you do to kind of kick it off in like a is there anything you do to like signify that like okay we started prep now like I said obviously the meals and the things and workouts but anything that you do personally that signifies that.
I journal. One thing I really recommend is journaling because when you like reading, like even reading my journal entries from my prep for nationals, knowing where you were mentally at certain points of prep, it's like I'm gonna be at that mental state again, but it probably in a worse way now. So I start journaling very early on just to see where I'm at mentally. And then that way, if things mentally start to shift for me, say in a bad way or something, I can look back and be like, okay, what week of prep did I start feeling like this? Or like what week of prep was I just not having a good time? Like what changed to where I need to work on this? So I instantly start journaling. One thing I'm doing different is I'm vlogging now. So I'm kind of doing like a like not like a diary, but after my pro debut, I'm gonna post it. But I'm basically vlogging my prep right now, like my pro debut prep, just to kind of show people what the process is like for me. So they can kind of see my personality, what my day to day is like, but also just to see what it took for me to bring my pro debut. So this time around, I'm vlogging. I have a few sponsors this time around, so a lot of stress-free things now. Like I have suits being made, I have supplement sponsors, things like that. Um, but yeah, what kickstarts it for me is really just getting the journal going and the cardio. The cardio is when it really hits me because I usually only have 30 minutes of cardio. Now it's like we're back to that hour of cardio again. And it's like I hate cardio the most. Like I've been a sprinter all my life, so I hate running at this point. So anything with cardio, I'm like, ugh. But that's when it really hits me is the cardio and then of course the journaling.
Do you have any tricks for getting through cardio? Do you I mean, is it this mental kind of struggle, or is it like, okay, let me, plug in Netflix and try to just like distract myself for this hour? What do you do?
So what this is weird, and I don't know if some people do this, but if I'm trying to do my 1 hour in the morning instead of doing 30 in the morning and 30 in the evening after my workout, I'll break it up into 20-minute sessions, like on different machines. So I'll start like 20 minutes on the Stairmaster, and then I'll get off the Stairmaster and go to like the bike for 20 minutes, and then I'll go to the treadmill for 20. Like different forms of cardio, like is what I have to do because there's no way I can sit on one equipment for an hour. Like I cannot. I
That's
cannot. I have to change it up.
I've never heard of anybody doing that. That's pretty interesting. And I wonder too if there's any like benefits as far as like working and like almost like keeping fresh certain, joints or certain, movements, patterns, just like wearing them down after, 10 weeks of doing an hour cardio per day. Like, I wonder if there's any benefit other than the mental side to the physical side of that.
I don't know, because like what I noticed, like whenever I would do, like sometimes I would change it up, like towards like 6 or 8 weeks out, I would strictly do Stairmaster or the bike because when I would do the bike with resistance, that's how I was getting the cuts in my quads. Like that's when my teardrops were coming. Like anything with resistant training was where my cuts would come through. So I would for sure change up my cardiovascular training that way. But what I realized is at the beginning of prep, when I would just do treadmill, I wasn't really like shredding up quick. Like I think each form of cardiovascular training determines how your body's going to look. So I always do all three at the beginning just to kind of get the heart rate going and to get it going. But I think towards the end, I notice a big difference in my physique when I do um, restraint type of training, like with cardiovascular.
Moving forward though, do you have a timeline that you're thinking of as far as like, you mentioned the Olympia stage once you turn pro. I think that's most people's goal is to step on that stage. Do you have like a timeline that you're thinking of? Is it like, okay, let's just get a show under our belts and then we'll see what we are? What is it for you?
Yeah, so of course every pro's goal would be to qualify for the Olympia. Like if I were to do that my first year, I would literally faint because I feel like it's you really got to grow yourself, get your name out there. Like so for me this year, my goal is to do at least 3 shows, depending on how each show goes. So it sounds like my first show will probably be the Chicago Pro in August. Depending on how my body looks weeks before that, we could even be doing um maybe even Tampa Pro. Like we threw some shows out there. We threw out Tampa Pro, Texas Pro. We know Chicago Pro is for sure happening. We even looked at Georgia. We're kind of all over the place, but we know Chicago Pro is for sure happening, and I'm for sure thinking Texas Pro as well. Um, and just depending on how I place at those shows will kind of determine how the rest of the year goes, of course. But my goal this year, like basic goal, is to just at least get a few shows under my belt, build my confidence on stage, just really learn what it's like to be a pro on a pro stage. Really,
Mhm.
that's my ultimate goal. And of course, like big goal wise would be to like qualify for the Olympia. Like, of course, I would love that.
Right. Yeah. And having a pro show in your home city, I mean, I think it's known and understood a little bit for, especially for the higher level bodybuilders, on how travel and especially flying can affect, the physique and stuff. Is it something to where you're thinking like, okay, even though this other show might be a few weeks before and we feel like we're as ready as we can be, that maybe it's worth not traveling just so we can preserve what we do have for sure here and then just doing the Chicago Pro.
Yeah, and like that's the thing. Like I feel like with my coach, he's very realistic about that type of thing, especially with travel, because I'm already an athlete that naturally holds water anyway. So any type of thing that's going to add water to me, it's kind of like we try to hold off of. So if I guarantee if my physique looks great and we're like a few weeks from Chicago Pro, he would probably leave it up to me. Like if you really want to travel somewhere before Chicago Pro and compete, we'll do it. But realistically, I know deep down he wants me to do Chicago Pro, especially since it's home. It's like right around the corner. I won't have to do much. I'll still probably stay at the hotel and do the whole experience. But I think it would be a great first show, very stress free, not a lot of travel craziness. Can just bring my meals to the hotel, not having to, you get what I'm saying? It's going to be very easy, smooth sailing. So I think as a first show, especially in my hometown, kind of, where I'm living, it would be a great experience. And then having all my family and friends, of course, come out and support. I think it'll be a good starter for me.
Yeah. Well, best of luck moving forward into this prep. It's going to be cool to get to follow along and then as well see that those kind of vlogs when they come out and see kind of how things were going into the psychology, into the training, into all that kind of stuff. So best of luck.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for having me. It's always fun to just be able to talk to someone and like and let them know my process, but also like for your listeners to also be able to see what it's like for women bodybuilders, men body, just anyone who's like either starting out or farther along. So thanks for having me as well.
Absolutely. It was great to get to chat with you. And if you want to share any socials or anything like that before we head out, you can.
Yeah, so if you're interested in following with my journey, you can follow me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is tamikatfit. And basically my link tree's in my bio, so then you can just go to my YouTube or any other social medias that I have as well.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.